Every 4 years, American citizens vote for a new local, state, and federal leadership, all of which promise to make life better for everyday Americans in some way, shape, or form. However, over the past 20 years, not a whole lot has actually changed for the better for everyday Americans. Ever since Bush promised a stronger nation, Obama promised a hopeful nation, Trump promised a greater nation, and Biden promised a better nation, what exactly has that culminated in? Can the average American quantify or feel the effects of these empty promises today? Everything's gotten more expensive in the last 20 years. Housing costs, medical costs, childcare costs, you name it. Illegal immigration has skyrocketed, which most Americans have shown they are staunchly against. Property and violent crime rates have come down from their peaks in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, but have remained higher than before the 70s. We pay more for basic amenities than almost any other Western country. Our roads suck in more ways than one. The federal government continues to fund cities who continue to widen highways instead of investing in proper rail infrastructure. Nor are we incentivizing the construction of dense, affordable housing anywhere near enough. And our streets are still mostly built for cars instead of people. This has been the case for decades, and that's because stagnation is built into our system, and as a feature, not a bug. The same lobbying groups pour millions of dollars into political campaigns regardless of political affiliation, ensuring first and foremost that elected officials prioritize the needs of the billionaire class before their actual voter base. And in turn, capitalism has effectively corrupted the government of the United States. Today, it's undeniable that policy is bought and sold, and better public transit, safer cities, zoning reform, and increasing the housing supply aren't seen as big enough moneymakers for the oligarchy. In reality, the president doesn't have much legislative power without Congress, and so often those two powers are not on the same page whatsoever. But what if, one day, those two branches of government were actually on the same page for once? A powerful political source that puts the needs of American voters first, rather than the lobbies. And what if that force was entirely urbanist? If you're new here, this is Fourth Place, your place to learn about U.S. geography, urbanism, transportation, and city planning. We can start to see what America might look like under an urbanist administration if we take a peek at the European state of urbanism in politics. As you can see, the results are pretty great. European countries and cities left and right wing have built and continue to invest heavily into protected bike lanes, local commuter and high-speed rail infrastructure, and smart, sustainable, safe, human-scaled communities. Housing supply still remains a core issue across the globe, but it's truly amazing what you can do when your government doesn't spend trillions of dollars within a single presidency propping up the military-industrial complex, both foreign and domestic. As an American, looking around European city centers is a humbling experience. Really, anywhere you plop down on Google Maps, you're seeing so much multimodality, better road design, and generally a lot more people walking around in areas built with pedestrians and cyclists in mind. Now put the little yellow guy in America's most allegedly walkable downtowns, and pretty much everything is dictated by the movement of cars. Unfortunately, sometime in the middle of the 20th century, Western European city life and American city life split paths, never to cross over again. Where a car-centric life was embraced by the vast majority of Americans by the 1960s, Europeans fought to protect and preserve their unique cultures and city life from automobile intrusion. This has had a wide range of effects that I discuss every week on this channel, and in turn, today, European cities big and small offer such a better quality of life for the average citizen, whereas Americans living in the city are fighting for their lives and spending hours commuting. It's become a part of American culture. The oil, auto, and aviation lobbies have spent enormous sums of money buying out politicians in order to suppress transit progression in our cities for decades. As a result, communities have become more individualized than ever, as cars have sort of forced us into these various life bubbles, We're used to it now, but I really wish it wasn't this way. And increasing suburban sprawl means diminishing economic mobility and community cohesion. Living in a city used to be communal by nature, but it's all changed. Enter an urbanist Congress with the power of the purse, alongside an urbanist president with the power of the pen. Using the $7 trillion expenditure under Biden's last year in office, let's see how we can really cut waste, fraud, and abuse. And if you're not from America and were curious how our federal government currently prioritizes transportation, you can see its fiscal year 2024 expenditures in billions of dollars shown here. Transportation slots in dead last, below other. So Doge is supposed to be cutting waste, fraud, and abuse, huh? $130 billion so far in just 3 months in office? That's pretty impressive. Not gonna make a dent in our $33 trillion outstanding debt, but sure, there is some fat that needs to be trimmed off the government's balance sheet. But here's an idea. What if we just stop sending America's money to other countries entirely? Crazy idea, I know, but everyday Americans really aren't interested in playing the world's babysitter and/or its piggy bank. Why does Japan, Germany, and the Netherlands get to use the majority of its money on its own citizens, and we don't? If you ask most Americans, they wish this wasn't the case. It's kinda one of the biggest promises Trump made on the campaign trail, but has yet to live up to. For example, if we hadn't spent a single dollar on Israeli military aid in the last 70 years, it would have saved us upwards of $2.32 trillion adjusted for inflation. That money alone, invested into American high-speed rail projects, mass zoning reform, and incentives towards building more missing middle and mixed-use, transit-oriented development, would have made us a true, self-sustaining economic powerhouse by now. And all things considered, we probably wouldn't be in such a big debt hole. So tell me again, how do American tax dollars sent to Israel, Ukraine, Jordan, and Egypt benefit everyday Americans again? With the way we're spending money on war in other countries, you'd be right to think we were the ones at war. But we're not, right? Right? While there is so much waste, fraud, and abuse stemming from the federal government, I do believe that Doge is a sort of distraction, one that's trying to shift our focus from the elephant in the room that is our foreign defense spending to the relative centipede that is overpaid government employee salaries or millions of dollars spent on fighting gender discrimination in Somalia or whatever. Don't believe $2 trillion plus could build back better? Well, you're right to be skeptical. Biden's $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill isn't going to do much of anything for rescuing Americans from their egregious commute times, rezoning our cities to allow for more mixed-use density, or build anything resembling a high-speed rail network. But with a little more competency in our federal government, it could've. For example, France built its entire high-speed rail network for about $100 billion in today's euros, and it did it at a cost of roughly 20 million euros per kilometer. Germany's entire high-speed rail network also cost around $100 billion in today's euros, and also roughly at 20 million euros per kilometer. California is allegedly building a high-speed rail network at a pace of 300 million euros per kilometer. 20 million in France and Germany versus 300 million in California. Big difference there, I know. So let's just assume this new federal urbanist leadership is half as competent and efficient as France or Germany are to get the ball rolling. Let's say we could build American high-speed rail at triple the cost for 90 million euros per kilometer, on a scale matching or surpassing Europe's roughly 12,000 kilometers of active high-speed rail today. By my calculations, this would come at a total cost of roughly 1.2 trillion US dollars, the entire cost of the infrastructure bill, or a little over a year's worth of national defense spending. And that figure represents triple the cost of what the Europeans are spending. An urbanist administration could take our money out of bombing the Middle East and use it to objectively better the lives of American people across the nation. And if Doge is actually willing to put its savings in an index fund until it can be used more competently, we could build light rail, heavy rail, tram, streetcar, and better bike infrastructure within our cities, big and small, on the scale that European cities have, for around $400 billion, spread throughout at most 20 years of planning and construction. And just think of the endless amount of possibilities here. We could finally turn America's underutilized rail yards and industrial districts into new, revitalized urbanist districts centered around a high-speed rail hub. This could be the catalyst for an explosion of new, dense, affordable housing, coupled with incentives for retail and commercial space, all packaged up into a mixed-use, sustainable, accessible, and transit-oriented form. With an urbanist president and an urbanist Congress, America would be on the verge of experiencing a 21st century industrial revolution, with high-speed rail having the potential to be even more massive and successful than the increasingly frustrating and penny-pinching aviation industry. These high-speed rail districts have the potential of creating new American industries focused on cutting-edge high-speed rail development and manufacturing, not to mention all of the new small business sectors that would come with that. Our downtowns could be reinvigorated, historic and entertainment districts could experience an influx of domestic and international tourism with the new ease of access. You could finally be able to get from Los Angeles to San Francisco, Portland, or Seattle with the same efficiency it takes to get from London to Paris or Paris to Barcelona. There could be a trickle-down effect from this urbanist administration that could completely revolutionize American life for the better, resurrecting our dying inner cities and jumpstarting a new era of American prosperity. And if we can take pride in our places like we used to, I think in a few decades' time, we could be living in an entirely new America. It's frustrating though, because today the most we're able to get in America, and where I live in California, are these new developments that may resemble urbanism, but lack any meaningful purpose. They have the walkability, the bikeability, and the amenities and shopping, but just completely neglect the housing part. Decent form, but really no function. And whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, or anything else, this is a winning proposal America has the money and resources to accomplish right now. But unfortunately, the richest man in the world isn't quite an urbanist. And beyond prioritizing and incentivizing high-speed rail districts, this fantasy urbanist administration would allocate billions, if not trillions throughout its term to build affordable, transit-oriented, mixed-use, missing middle housing. We can't have that right now, though, because lobbies are using capitalism to call the shots themselves. Therefore, even America's most YIMBY municipalities have to break an arm and a leg to try and work around them and receive funding. An urbanist president and Congress would overfund rezoning, infill, redevelopment, and renewal as swiftly and efficiently as possible. But as long as housing supply is incentivized to remain low for maximum corporate profit, America will continue to have to deal with the rising cost of living that's been spiraling out of control in recent years, not to mention the growing population of homeless people. The effect this platform would have on crime and homelessness alone would be huge. But as I said last week, you actually can't force people to want to better themselves. That's a choice, no matter how many new resources you provide. Interstates and freeways can remain, but as more money is rightfully allocated towards funding the expansion of inner and intra-city transit, these services will have to be repurposed, resembling a more European approach. Mandating the construction of bikeways next to freeways will be a priority in this administration. There's certainly a lot more to be outlined in the specific details, but I'm not a politician, and I don't get paid to work out the nitty-gritty of a hypothetical urbanist political platform. At least, not yet. And look, a lot of the calculations and cost estimates in this video are pretty rough, and compiling and comparing federal spending data in America and Europe when it comes to weapons, aid, and transportation isn't exactly straightforward. The main point I want to get across to you is that America is burning through cash it doesn't have in order to fund real waste, fraud, and abuse, at the behest of lobbyists. And if we were to stop needlessly meddling in foreign affairs, an urbanist administration might actually be able to get a lot done for the American people, and your neighborhood NIMBY wouldn't even stand a chance. But there's much more federal restructuring that needs to take place too, from top to bottom. I really only think something like the election of an urbanist administration would happen if we had more options with larger platforms, more funding, and ranked voting. And of course, outlawing lobbies. But for now, stagnation is built into the two-party system, and it's built by those who fund it. So if it wasn't already abundantly obvious, yes, just one two-term urbanist president working alongside a majority urbanist Congress could and would actually make America great again. I'll see you next week from fourth place.